Hey guys, to help run the forums, host the website, and travel, we've introduced a universal service fee for in-depth coverage, including this video. The goal is to be transparent and unbiased. This is not an endorsement. It's a privilege to serve you. Let's get into it.
Hey guys, what's going on? I am here reviewing the Uniro eTorque. Now, if you haven't heard of it before, the Uniro eTorque is kind of a newer brand to the United States, but from what I understand, they have a global operation doing Europe, North America, and Australia. That's kind of like the name that they got going on for Uniro. But regardless, so here is the eTorque. It has kind of an aggressive sounding name, but the bicycle is much more of a cruiser, as you can tell. Kind of like a commuter, cruiser kind of bicycle that they're going for here. You can see that it has a lot of really good equipment on it. What you're looking at is the Bafang motor in the back here. This is the 350 nominal watt hub drive motor that you have. And powering that is a 36 volt 12 amp hour battery. Put in the down tube here with kind of like a little bit of the profile coming up out of the metal casing for the frame. And it has a as you've seen before, this one has the USB charge port in it, which is really kind of nice. This one has a torque sensor for the electric engagement, as well as a throttle. So it has a throttle and a torque sensor, not just a regular cadence sensor that you see on a lot of other bikes around this price point. Which, by the way, this bike is priced at $15.99 is what it's selling for right now. But the torque sensor is pretty cool. A lot of the times you'll see a torque sensor that is built into the frame back here, and that's kind of like a tension system where it's measuring the flex, but that's not what this one has. This one has a bottom bracket torque sensor that is integrated into the actual bottom bracket itself. So this unit, you can't really see much. I mean, that's kind of the point of having it integrated. The bottom bracket that's down in the torque sensor, it's in the bottom bracket here. It's really pretty nice. I like it a lot. I feel like the engagement is very responsive. I think it's a good system together. So with the Bafang motor, the torque sensor in the bottom bracket, the slightly integrated battery, we got one more thing to cover the electric system. One of my favorites, actually, because, truth be told, we've been seeing these parts for a long time. They have some great reliability, particularly the Bafang systems are known for their quality control. But what we got here is a really nice display that I think is pretty cool. So it's a pretty streamlined display. Here's the Uniro branding on there, but you have a streamlined display that's pretty small. You know, this display, it's not comprising a large part of the total cockpit up here, but it's pretty slim. It kind of pokes out. You can see a little riser coming up from the handlebars there, but it has kind of like this automotive styling to it, with the way that it has the speed coming up on this gauge here. See if we can get that going a little bit to show the speed coming up. There we go. So there's your speed indicator that shows you numerically as well as showing the gauge increase, and it has kind of like this, I guess I'd call the motif kind of like Back to the Future. You know, it's got gray, but like kind of like a little white or a whitish blue glow to it. And you have your battery percentage over here, which you can change to be a voltage meter if you like, for some of the more detailed folks, as well as your basics, you know, plus and minus for pedal assist, and you can press plus to turn on the lights. You have an indicator right here on the display itself that powers the front light, which has, you know, a couple of good LEDs right here sticking out, as well as the rear back here. You got the light along with a large reflective face that's going back towards the traffic. So that's controlled up here, as well as a walk if you hold down the negative button. Some people get excited about that until they find out that the bike has a throttle anyway. So the walk assist is pretty cool and everything, but truth be told, it's kind of overlaps the throttle, but this display is used with other bikes, I'm sure. So that's really cool. Another thing I like about the display, aside from the really pretty looks and the full color and the kind of Back to the Future automotive motif, it has like a vibrational feedback. So that feature has existed in other electric bike displays, but it's really cool. When you press the plus or minus button, you get a little bit of a vibration, kind of like the Nintendo 64 Rumble Pack. If you're around my age, you press the button, it kind of shakes a little bit, just a little bzz, bzz. phones kind of do that a little bit sometimes when you're typing and things, but it's really cool. I've seen some other displays do different feedback methods. The Yamaha display, for example, it has a bright LED light that comes up. That's kind of like to let you know that you've done something, because the easier that they make the display to use, the more sensitive they make it to someone's touch, the less that you get that tactile kind of a feeling, and the more that you have to look at the display to figure out, did I actually do something? Did I actually do it? I don't know if it's a break in connectivity between the humans and the machine, or if it's a break in our psyche that we're worried about something not working. But anyways, nonetheless, it's really a good feature that riders appreciate, to have a feedback, to have some kind of message that they're doing the right thing. And this one has that feedback in the sense of vibration. Of course, it operates, tells you in the numbers. But so yeah, every time you press the little plus button, it little shakes a little bit, and little one and everything. So that's a really nice thing. So that's what you're looking at for the electric system, from the back of the bike up to the front. And for the mechanical system, what we have here is a lot of Promax. So we have some Wellgo pedals that are metal with the rubber for the platform, which is nice. Reflectors built in as a standard. Plastic for the chain guard here. And that's kind of where my, it's kind of where my complaints end. This plastic chain guard, in my opinion, doesn't really match the metal fenders. Now, the metal fenders that are color matched to the frame is really nice. I like these fenders a lot. As you can see, I've been using them today because it's been raining, so I appreciate them. But the plastic fender guard is kind of a strange combination with the two. I was hoping for color matched metal, but nonetheless, the bike has a lot of other really good stuff to it too. These are some Kenda tires that have worked really well. I forget the model. I think it's the Quick Roller for the tires. At the moment, they need some air pressure. Classic Schrader valves. You have some 13 gauge spokes here, and if I remember right, there's 36 in total. The Suntour NEX shock is pretty good. It has a fair amount of travel, especially for a city bike. You're looking at something just fine. One complaint is that the light is mounted on the bracket, which it's a metal bracket. That's really nice. The plastic brackets, they break all the time. So this one's good. It's got metal. If you're like me and you worked at a bike shop for a long time, you know that those plastic brackets, hopefully the bike shop near you has a lot of them on hand, because they are a very common failure point. But nonetheless, this one has a metal bracket, so that's nice. That's going to last well. But one complaint that I have is that it's mounted on the arc for the fork rather than being mounted on the crown of the fork here. And so it's kind of a nitpicky thing, but like if you're riding in a bumpy area at night on this city bike, which in Salt Lake some of the roads could be smoother, then your light is going to kind of bounce around a lot, and that's not a big deal when you're riding. However, if it bounces too much, then the light is going to come loose and then slide down, and you'll have a very bright illuminated fender. So that's one thing to look out for. It's kind of a very specific sort of complaint. You have to have a lot of stars aligned in order for that to bother you, but it has happened, so be aware of that. But what you're looking at is Promax brakes. So because this one has a torque sensor, it's not as necessary to have brake inhibitors. But if you do have a runaway throttle, then that could be a thing. So these are kind of a basic lever for the brakes. But the brakes themselves, other than the levers, I don't have too many complaints about. It's a mechanical disc brake, which personally I like mechanical because I can fix them. With hydraulic brakes, you need a bleed kit, and they don't go bad as much. The hydraulic are really nice, don't get me wrong, but I like to be able to fix things, and with the mechanical disc brakes such as these, they're a lot easier for me to fix, and I'm guessing they're going to be easier for you to fix if you want to do that. So if that applies to you, consider that. But you have mechanical discs, and these are 160 millimeter rotors here, both front and the rear. Got a quick release in the front for the hub right there, and you have 170 millimeter cranks, both sides. And in the back, we're looking at a very similar set for the brakes. These are also 160. Kickstand is also in the rear, which is good because it doesn't get in the way of the pedals when you're shuffling it around the garage or something. And you have an adjustment right here if you want to change the height. If, for example, you're on a slope, like I am right now. But This rack is a pretty good rack. It's rated for a maximum of 25 kilograms, but it has a lot of adjustment points. So if you carry something really heavy on a regular basis, say if you, I don't know, carry paint around or something, you're going to want to tighten up the bolts on the rack fairly often. Other bikes will have a rack that is welded to the frame, and depending on the strength, and that's a good thing. But with something like this, you'll have to, if you carry heavy loads often, you'll have to tighten up those bolts all the time, which, you know, is something to consider. If you carry heavy stuff, I'd say like a gallon of paint or something like that, I would say about that heavy, maybe a little bit more. If you carry something like that regularly, yeah, then I'd keep an eye on it. But if you're carrying lightweight stuff, you know, a binder or a laptop that's padded or something, then you'll be fine. You won't have to do anything. But anyways, let me just get back a bit to the bike. So similar set of color matched fenders here, reflectors on the tire, reflectors on the wheel, no reflectors on the tire. So these tires don't have a reflective strip on them, but that's a pretty easy thing. If you wanted to change that, any bike shop should be able to help you out with that. You also have a suspension seat post for the seat. So the seat itself is a Velo seat that has some gel inside of it. It's a pretty comfy seat, especially for the low profile. I like the stuff that Velo has put out so far. But on top of the seat, which is not bad, despite its somewhat slim profile, I'd call this kind of a medium profile, or footprint, I should say, a medium footprint. The suspension seat post is nice. This is a Suntour suspension seat post. Kind of collapses a little bit to take out the edge off of some of the bumps that you encounter, and also a quick release for the seat post as well, which is nice, especially if you trade this bike with anyone or, you know, share it. The derailleur that you're looking back here is a 7-speed Shimano set of gears, as well as the tourney for the derailleur. Perfectly good set from Shimano. It's not the highest end rung for Shimano parts, but you know what, in my experience, that's usually okay for casual city riding. Casual city riding, you don't really need a whole lot of gears, especially if you live in kind of a flat area. If you're in a place like, I don't know, like say Oxon Hill, Maryland, or White Fox, or no, White Oak or Oxon Hill. If you're in a place like that, then with a lot of hills, then you're probably going to want something that has a better set, especially if you encounter a steep hill all at once. But for something pretty easy going, you know, a fairly flat plateau, like Salt Lake has a very large area that's flat, then, you know, you'd probably be fine with a set like this. They're going to be okay. On the handlebars or up in the cockpit, you have your 7-speed indexer here. You got 2 triggers that kind of do a pinch motion, so this does one side and that does the other. Very, you know, normal set of levers here, nothing too much. And your display, this one has the adjustable stem on it, so you can go from, you know, a 90 degree to, I think it was like a 300 degree. I'm not sure where they start counting that, but you can also adjust the height of the stem as well, just in there. And you have a thumb throttle on the left hand side, which is pretty good. I like thumb throttles personally. The twist throttles are nice. They have the twist throttles have a greater success rate, mostly because it doesn't have that extra little pinch of plastic. With the thumb throttles, they work just fine as far as electrics are concerned. The danger is that someone is going to smash it or bash it, especially on a mountain bike, when they're doing something kind of aggressive, or if they're putting the bike in the garage or something like that, or in a truck, you know, tossing it around. So that's really as far as I can tell, that's really the only risk between a thumb throttle and a twist. And since I like to be careful with my stuff, I think a thumb throttle's fine. One thing I really like about a thumb throttle is that you can put a pair of vice grips on it, and then the weight will drag it down, so you have like a makeshift cruise control. I've only done that once, I promise. But anyways, let me take you for a ride on the Uniro eTorque. Let's see how it does. Okay, so we just did a brief ride around the neighborhood behind the factories. Got to see a little bit of scenery and see actually a pretty cool garden where they make some of the local food here. So that was kind of nice. A nice little trip on a rainy day here. So I got to see the display working just fine in the wet conditions. It is a waterproof display, by the way. I'm not sure if that's like, you know, water resistant or up so many meters underwater, but nonetheless, it handled just fine in the rain here, which is, you know, more wet than a lot of folks want to ride in as is. But the bike did very well. It was very comfortable. That's one thing that I didn't really mention in the prior part of the display, going over the specifications, was that the bike is really comfy. It has a lot of nice little touch points to make it a pretty easygoing ride. The grips are really nice. The grips have that ergonomic side to them, so you don't wear out your hands after a long time and get numb. The seat is pretty comfortable itself, and with the suspension seat post, really gave a relaxed kind of feeling with the positioning, you know, kind of putting my weight back. So that was something that was pretty comforting, despite the kind of leeriness that I have about riding around the area. So it was a pretty good feature. You can tell when I came back from the ride, I was a little more excited about the scenery than I was the bicycle, and I guess that's a good thing. You know, it means the bike is doing well for its job. The torque sensor picked up really well. I like that. I prefer torque sensors over cadence myself. But yeah, the torque sensor picked up right away. It was really good. It's exactly what I'd want from an easygoing commuter. So if this bike kind of fits you, maybe you want to consider it. The bike, again, is the Uniro eTorque. So if you'd like, you can see a full review on electricbikereview.com. Stay safe, guys, ride a lot, and I will catch you on the forums.